Welcome to the next episode of Two Guys Discussing Russia Over Pastries. And today we have a special guest, Scott Gehlbach, Professor of Political Science at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And the question we pose to him is Putin's popularity real?
Well, thanks so much. It's a pleasure to be here. And I guess the first question that I should ask is why we think necessarily that Putin's popularity isn't real. So opinion polls have shown for years that Putin's popularity is quite high. It's never dipped below 60% in any of the major public opinion polls. It's currently over 80%. And if you look at the dynamics of Putin's popularity, it tracks things that we would think would affect popularity, that we know affect the popularity of incumbent leaders in other countries. So when the economy is doing well, Putin is more popular. When people feel that their personal financial situation is better, they evaluate him more positively. There seems to have been a wave of nationalist sentiment following events in Crimea and Ukraine, and popularity has responded to that. So I guess the first way of answering the question is, sure, why not? But I guess the other way of answering the question would be to say, well, we might suspect that perhaps people are not telling the truth when a stranger knocks on their door and says, do you support the activities of Vladimir Putin? So who is this person? Why should I trust you? Perhaps there might be a negative consequence if I give the wrong answer, or I simply want to be on the same wavelength as the interviewer who most likely supports Putin. And so they might be inclined to misrepresent their preferences in that way. And so this is the motivation for a survey that we did on 2 occasions earlier this year. We, as Tim Fry at Columbia University, John Reuter at UW-Milwaukee, and Kyle Markart, who's a recent Wisconsin graduate at the VDEM Institute, we did something that's called a list experiment. So a list experiment is a type of experiment that's embedded in a survey. So respondents receive one of 2 different versions of the same question. So half of the respondents, randomly chosen, receive a list that says, I'm going to read you a list of names, and I want you to tell me how many people on the list you support. Not which ones, but how many. And so the names are, we had a historical list and a contemporary list. So the historical list was, for example, was Stalin, Brezhnev, and Yeltsin. And so half of the respondents get that list. They give a number. So I support nobody on the list, 1 person, 2 people, 3 people. The other half of the respondents, randomly chosen, receive the same list, but with Putin's name on it. And again, they're asked how many of the people, not which ones, but how many of the people on the list do you support? And so the idea is this gives people an opportunity to reveal their preferences honestly while maintaining plausible deniability. So perhaps they don't actually support Putin, but they support Stalin and Brezhnev. They can say 2, and nobody knows whether that 2 includes Putin or not. And so by comparing the average response among those who receive the short list to the average response among those who receive the long list, we can come up with an estimate of the proportion of individuals who support Putin. And so what we found is that support for Putin through our list experiments is very close to what you see when you ask the direct question. So the direct question, it's in the upper 80s, and with our list experiments, it's around 80%. So yes, Putin is popular. Putin's popularity is real.
It's real. Okay, Sufian, do you agree with that position?
Well, that's a great method of research, and I'm actually admired by it. And I don't doubt that the outcomes of the research are very well measured. But the thing is, if we look at the bigger picture of how Russian society today is, and if we look at how Putin is dealing with his with other political figures in Russia, we could say that he's controlling absolutely the media, and he's controlling the minds of Russian citizens, which is, I wouldn't say, denies actually the popularity, but if we step back and take even a bigger picture, look at a bigger picture, like let's look at Putin as a historical figure, because you described on your survey several historical figures. And if we would look at other historical figures, let's say in Soviet past, we can see that Stalin was still popular after he died. while Khrushchev, Brezhnev, Gorbachev, Yeltsin, as soon as they stepped down, their popularity disappeared. So I think that only in time we will see if Putin is really popular, or it's just was this virtual and artificial environment that he raised his popularity artificially. So, for example, if he steps down and even in 1-2 years, we will see if his popularity will stay like Stalin's popularity, or if it will become zero like Brezhnev's or Khrushchev's popularity today.
Can I respond?
Yes, please.
So I don't disagree with those comments.
Okay.
So what we're not saying is that Putin's popularity isn't affected by the media environment, for example. So it almost certainly is. It would be a surprise if it weren't. And we're not saying that Putin's support is not soft, that I think it's entirely possible that it could evaporate quickly if the economic situation continues to worsen or if he were to lose power. All that we're saying at the moment is that people seem to be telling the truth when asked the question, do you support the activities of Vladimir Putin?
Then I would respond that actually, though the method you're using is very good, but it's good for Western open society, where popularity is important. While in Russia, popularity is not important. Putin doesn't rely on his popularity 1 point during elections. So if he's popular, why doesn't he allow free elections? Why he's not elected in democratic way? No, he controls the election process and everything. And I would argue that probably it would be wrong to apply the same categories of popularity and use the same instruments and methods to measure popularity of a leader that are used here in the Western world and apply them to Russia. And I think maybe that's the wrong approach, and you can't even measure Putin's popularity in Russia because there is no such thing in Russian authoritarian environment as popularity.
The only way to resolve this is to flip the coin.
Okay.
So heads or tails?
I'll take tails.
Tails. Let's see. It's tails.
Hey!
Excellent. Thank you very much.
So congratulations to you and congratulations to Putin. He's really popular.
Excellent.